Recording button and we will get started. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us to another webinar with Aiwa. My name is Zela Astarjian and I'm Vice President of the Aiwa Central Board. And I'm your webinar host today. I would like to welcome you to another of Aiwa's virtual events together with Arina Zohrabian from the Armenian Volunteer Corps and a former Aiwa board member, Tsoleen Sarian, who also is involved with the Armenian Volunteer Corps, and they're both going to tell us in a minute about their experience, how they both got to Armenia, and this is an open conversation, so you'll learn a lot about how to volunteer in Armenia. Today's format is conversational and there's going to be time for Q&A. So please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A feature on your screen throughout the whole session. The audience is muted and we also have a survey at the end of the program. So please take a minute to let us know what future topics you want us to cover. It's an anonymous survey. If you want to share your information, please add your email and your name. Before we get into the discussion, I'd like to remind you about Aiwa's mission and the three main pillars that we are currently focusing on. Our mission is simple. It is to connect and elevate Armenian women globally. And today's webinar is all about connecting. Please type in, before I forget, please type in the chat box of your screen, the state, city that you're connecting from. Love to see folks from all over the world, hopefully. In terms of how Aiwa elevates Armenian women, we do that through three strategic focused areas. Number one, health and wellness. So we support a woman's right and power to be aware and in control of her mental, physical, emotional, psychological well-being, and we support domestic violence programs. I'm sure you've heard about Maro Matosian's Women's Support Center that we support for years. Number two area of focus is education. We give out thousands of scholarships every year to deserving Armenian women who are going to colleges and universities all over the world. And number three is economic empowerment, because without financial freedom, women have to sometimes make very difficult choices. We started the Empower Path program, and we've been supporting Artsakh to train women who had to leave Artsakh. More on that on our website if you're interested. So let's get into today's panel. Briefly, I just want to share Arina Zohrabian's bio. She moved to Armenia in 2002 as a volunteer with Armenian Volunteer Corps, or AVC is how we're going to mention that today. And what was supposed to be a one-year service turned into a life-changing journey. She's going to tell us all about her journey. Arina grew up in Iran and then moved to the US at a young age, and then completed her education in Canada, Spain, like all over the world, right? You're a woman of the world, Arina. And she's AVC's executive director. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. I mean, at this point, I'd love to for you to tell us about what brought you to Armenia in June of 2002. Your background, your story. Would love to hear a little bit more about it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to you and to Aiwa for this opportunity. I always have this crazy smile on my face when I talk about AVC, because it was truly a life-changing organization for me. I think my parents were super excited, at the age of 22, when I decided to embark on a one-year volunteer service. They said, yes, freedom from our daughter for a year. And then I've been here forever since then. I've never really returned back home, as Armenia has become my home. But in the diaspora, or even for the non-diasporans, because AVC also brings a lot of non-Armenians to Armenia, there's a lot of work to be done, and it's a very, very small country. And with that size, there's a lot of potential for change. And so coming right after having graduated college and university, I saw the opportunity to, I think, do a lot more in a country that needed me much more than America. So that 1 year has now turned into year 23. I also moved to Armenia on the best possible day, June 1st, which happens to coincide with International Children's Day. It's a fun day of festivities. So yeah, that's a little bit about how I ended up here. My journey in Armenia was extremely lucky. After my 1 year of service, I ended up working at two different organizations. One was a State Department funded organization by the name of IREX, where I did educational programs for 10 years. And then I transitioned to the American University of Armenia. But 4 years ago, I came back home to ABC to work professionally with a small team of amazing colleagues and a small but mighty force of volunteers who are all working to really impact Armenia. And the hope is today to tell you guys about ABC, to hopefully encourage more and more of the diaspora and more Otars, non-Armenians, to come and really make impact in Armenia. So that's my very brief introduction before I segue into the presentation. I don't know if we want to do a quick introduction of Tsoleen first, or if I should just delve in. You tell me. Okay. So in that case, give me 1 second to hopefully not screw up with the screen sharing. So please.
Why don't you just continue? And then because it's part of the presentation, I can jump in later. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Great. So let me give you a very, very brief rundown. I promise I will try to be quick. It shouldn't take too long. And the majority of this presentation will be a lot more about what our volunteers have done to give you a real understanding of what you might be able to do when you're here. So we have 3 different corps. ABC has different corps of a junior corps, which is volunteers who are coming between the ages of 21 to 31. And they are typically non-Armenians, because anyone within that age group that will come through our sister organization, Birthright Armenia. We have our professional corps. So Tsoleen came off of our professional corps, ages of 32 to 59, where they have a 20-hour commitment of volunteering per week. And then we have a senior corps of 60 plus, age 60 plus volunteers. And I think I have 2 of my senior corps alum, my repeat volunteers, who are joining me today on this call. The time commitment, we really cater to sort of your availability. We do terms of as little as 2 weeks, all the way up to 1 year. One of the really amazing things about ABC is we're not seeking donations. The only donation we have a requirement of is for anyone who is serving less than a month. You're covering your costs, but you're getting a lot of service and a lot of support from ABC that I'll talk to you about. What those include is we'll pick you up from the airport. If you are interested in living with a host family, we provide very affordable options to live with a host family. It's an amazing way to immerse in the Armenian culture, see how Armenian people live, but also to learn the language for anyone who really wants to work on improving their language skills. We also have free Armenian language classes twice a week. We offer health insurance. Now, coincidentally, I used to make fun of it, saying it was like American health insurance. We took your money, but it never offered anything. Then we actually had a lot of incidents where volunteers, unfortunately, were getting into sort of accidents, and we found that it actually does work at a tiny fraction of, I think it's $16 a month for anyone up till the age of 65, and then it's double that. We offer a full office support, so everyone gets our contact information. They have our cell phone. There's an issue, there's something you want to share, we're there to support you. We have a co-working space. We do walking tours that provide you a really amazing opportunity to learn more about Yerevan and the history, but also to see, how to, deal with buses and the metro and things like that. We do weekly excursions, forums and meetings. We do geopolitical discussions. So earlier today we had Professor Zohrabian, who joined us to talk about sort of the current reality that Armenia is facing. We do community service projects. On Monday, we're going to Sevan to do a great event with Bari Mama and Geo. And then once you're done, my favorite expression in Armenian, Mezanit Bortun Chika, you're stuck with us forever. You join the alumni family.
Perfect.
How do we customize the placements? A lot of people say, how do you do what you do? And we do what we do by listening to what our volunteers want to do. And if anyone sees Lita smiling, it's because she's at the bottom middle of that photo. That's her. So there is an application process. You submit an application. You talk to us about what you're doing, what you'd like to do. We do a one-on-one interview where we ask you the questions. Now, whether your expertise is in a field that you're interested in working in, or whether you want to try something completely new, ABC will listen to what you'd like to accomplish in Armenia, and that's what we'll try to make happen for you. All right. We have at this point more than 1,400 participants. So we have 1,370 alumni plus more than 30 people in country at the moment. Minus me, we have more than 100 people living in country or, visiting longer term, which also includes Tsoleen. On average, most of our volunteers are volunteering for about 2 months. Although for those of our volunteers who end up staying a little bit shorter, they always say, "Why couldn't I stay longer?" Our youngest volunteer has been 20, turning 21 at their time of service. Our oldest volunteer is 85. So when people say, am I too old to volunteer? The response to that is you're never too old until you think you're too old. So, if you have that energy and you're ready to share, then we definitely invite you to allow us to help you make your impact. So as you can see, the orange and the red are the numbers of the professional and senior corps. So if you see, the blues dominated all the way up until I'd say about 2016, about 2013. But then you'll see a lot more orange and red, so the professional corps and senior corps. And 2024 was ABC's largest number, bringing in 150 volunteers. And again, although quantity is not an important thing for us, we care much more about quality. The more volunteers we do bring, ultimately, the more impact there is to Armenia. Now, can volunteers make a difference? So this is the one question I get asked pretty regularly. How can I come for a month and actually do anything? That's a great question. So the answer to that very easily is yes, you can make a difference. And I'm going to give you 5 very specific examples of volunteers who have been able to just do that. Tsoleen, who used to be an Aiwa board member, is an ABC alum. We're very proud of her and has decided to repatriate to Armenia. Instead of me telling her story, I'll ask her to tell her story. And then after that, we'll continue. So Tsoleen John, I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. And so before coming, I decided to move to Armenia. I had earned my master's degree, and then COVID happened, the war happened. I said, now's the time to participate in my country. And so I had bought my one-way ticket, but I didn't have a job. And I was looking to have a little bit of experience on the ground, kind of understand nuances of culture, office culture, and ABC has a certain network and a safety net through that network that was very attractive to me. So I knew that I wasn't going to be alone. I was placed in three different places within the 20 hours a week. So it wasn't a heavy lift, but it got me a little acclimated to both living in Armenia and the tempo of how offices are run here. I'll say that having that structure of a volunteer placement allowed me to still be a tourist in those first few months, but it really helped me acclimate and gave me the contacts so that I could on the side be looking for work. But also that network is something I still utilize tremendously. It's a network of people, both local and diasporans, that are here to really support us. And so, I decided to move, but even coming for an extended period of time, knowing that there's people who've experienced, where to buy, why the water gets shut off, and how to get it turned back on, and how to pay for the metro, and like little things that make living, knowing that there's people that can ready and willing to help you. So it's not an irritation, just something to laugh about. I'm grateful for ABC and the family, and I'm I contribute back to the family by being one of those people for others, being that resource for others now, because I'm so grateful that this network welcomed me. I think, Arina, I think that's anything else that I need. I guess we'll continue.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, Tsoleen. Moving on, we recently welcomed and already said goodbye to Manusha Kavnusyan from Switzerland. She is half Armenian, but growing up, her father was heavily into Armenian politics as a diasporan, originally from Lebanon. And she really fought to be much more, she fought to not remember her Armenian roots. So she grew up very European. When her father died years and years ago, she ended up realizing that she wanted to much more connect to her roots and ended up building a community of Armenian diasporans and even writing a book about the diasporans in Switzerland. Earlier this year, she ended up joining us for her third visit to Armenia, but this time she decided to come through as a volunteer. And she's got two pretty significant skill sets that Armenia really needed. So she's a communications expert. Vani, I think I saw you online, so this is also sort of your field as well. And she's also a former journalist. So she had a few things that she was adamant about wanting to do. Her parents or her grandparents were survivors of, so the genocide affected her family pretty greatly. And so she wanted to see how she could support and remember sort of that trauma. And so one of her placements was the Armenian Genocide Museum and Institute, where she ended up working on building a communication strategy, which included not only their website. So if you go to their website now, it's still in progress. Nothing has been changed. So that's not her work, but giving them a lot of feedback, but also working on their social media strategy. She was able to listen to tours that included, pieces of information about her grandparents. So it was very much sort of like a circle home of realizing just how Armenian she was. She also ended up supporting the Aran Khachaturian Museum, helping them develop guides, audio guides for German speakers. I can't attest to quality because I don't speak German, but she's pretty amazing. So, German speakers will now understand that museum much more. And then as a journalist, a former journalist, she also wanted to hear a lot about what was happening in country. She spoke to a lot of people who had lost family members, sons, husbands during the war, and will be working on improving the storytelling of how the tragedy of what happened in Artsakh and sort of with very few people, very few countries speaking about it. She will try to better tell that story in Switzerland now that she's back home. So for us, that's pretty significant impact. Stacy Terterian joined our professional corps from the US in 2023. She had just randomly decided to visit Armenia and was really excited to join ABC. She joined ABC, and immediately after that, the forced exodus happened. When she started volunteering, she calls me and she says, Arina, I'm going to Goris, I'm going to Sunik. So she was one of the first people on the ground in Kornizor, welcoming, people who had essentially lost their everything, and continued doing and supporting a lot of humanitarian initiatives. She, like Tsoleen, dared to repatriate and now lives in Armenia. So she is also an amazing, amazing person. But in addition to what she did with, the forced exodus during that time, she's published a number of articles about her time in Armenia. They were published on the Fresno Bee and in the Armenian Weekly. And my colleague Lida, who, by the way, is the Pro and Senior Corps program officer and supports most of our professional and senior volunteers alongside me and my team, has input the links for you to read more about her story, because she did a lot while she was with us. Cytogenetics, I have no idea what it is. I tried to Google. I even listened to Lucy Gugasian when she talked to me about it. And I now understand why I did not go into in the medical field. But Lucy is from Australia, and the people that you see on her screen, the two women are her daughters. That's her husband in the middle, and the guy on the left is the boyfriend of one of her daughters. They took a family trip. So the three of them, the daughters and Lucy, decided to volunteer. The daughters through birthright, mom through ABC. Husband came to take care of them. So he was doing the cleaning, the cooking, and all that fun stuff. And as a cytogeneticist, she decided that she wanted to support you know, C, G, and NOR banding in Armenia, which are very specific processes in helping with infertility and in prenatal care, if I understood it correctly. So no one or someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I got it right. She had a phenomenal experience, and like Tsoleen said, I think for her it was really important to have the network. She joined the walking tours, she joined the geopolitical presentation, she did the excursions. She really took you know, part of almost everything that we did, and will be leaving tomorrow, unfortunately, and is already thinking about possibly coming back. We're hoping with her husband to volunteer as well next year. Now, if we have any non-Armenians, and I think I saw Bill in the group, we do have non-Armenians who come, and sometimes they come as just, you know, someone who wants to learn and see Armenia, but they also might come with, you know, an Armenian partner. So the people on your screen now, Mark Agulian and Rebecca Keller. Mark is a gentleman, an expert in museums. He has more than 30 years experience working in museums, whether it's designing, curating, developing, or whatever exhibitions. He was matched with the Armenian Center for Contemporary Experimental Art, also known as NIPOC, and the Institute of Contemporary Arts. His wife is an artist. She's also a published author, an Armenian by choice, as we like to call her. And she did a lot of work as sort of a woman who teaches at the Chicago School of Art School, Institute of Art, Chicago Institute of Art, if I'm remembering the name correctly. She ended up supporting the Institute of Contemporary Art, specifically working with students and their art portfolios, which is something that she does. They both loved their experience and were really, really, I think, amazed in a positive way that we were able to customize placements in a field that was very, very specific to them. Like I said, you're stuck with us once you join. You join the alumni family. So a lot of our alumni either come back for repeat volunteering. There's also a lot of support in terms of networking, as Tsoleen mentioned, whether, you know, some of the younger professional corps volunteers, if they want to find a job, we provide a lot of support with job search and integration. But you also really get an amazing resource with the entire staff. And the final thing is, each and every time you come back, you're always more than welcome to take part in the language classes, the forums, the excursions, the activities, and then hanging out with us, you know, when we're available. So how to join, this is the most fun part. There's an application process. And, you know, if your thought process is, well, an hour and a half, there's too many questions. Well, if you're willing to commit at least 20 hours of your time a week for at least 2 weeks or a month, then trust me, the application is well worth those efforts. It will help us customize everything to your needs. We also have, I recommend you check out our blog. The link is there, as well as our FAQs, to read more about what other volunteers have accomplished. You're also more than welcome to email me personally, or info@abc.am, which Lita is checking regularly. And, you know, ultimately, we want to help you impact Armenia, do the things that you'd like to accomplish. And with that, the final recommendations are here are our LinkedIn and Facebook pages. So if you want to get more information, you can just take a quick photo of those QR codes, and you can, you know, join those pages. And I think I'm done. If final thing, I lie. I always say I'm done, and then I have more to say. If you have any relatives, friends who are Armenian diasporans within the ages of 21 to 32, ABC, which is fully self-financed, Birthright Armenia, our sister organization, actually does provide some financial incentives. So if they're interested, please do let them, you know, check in with Birthright. And if you write to us, we can put you in touch with our Birthright colleagues as well. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there, stop sharing. And then I'd love to, again, you know, a big thank you to Aiwa for this. But if there are any questions, I would love to answer them.
Arina, I had a question that you started talking about Birthright. I think there's some confusion about the two, and can you explain where does one start and the other end, or how does it work? And you mentioned that family from Australia whose daughter did Birthright. Can you just expand on that?
So ABC has like really, really amazing roots. It was founded in 2000 by an American Armenian who is now at their hire, a priest in the Armenian church in Florida. And he had done Peace Corps. He loved the experience so much. He said, I want to do something similar to bridge the gap between the diaspora and Armenia. But then, something happened where people like Bill Zimmerman, who I see has joined this call, said, I'm not Armenian, but I want to sign up. So ABC ultimately transformed in supporting both Armenians and non-Armenians in volunteering in Armenia. At one point, ABC was doing only the placements, Birthright was doing the fun stuff, but in 2014, so 2004 was when Birthright Armenia was founded, but in 2014, it was a complete sort of division. So Birthright Armenia provides some incentives for Armenian diasporans who are at least 25% Armenian between the ages of 21 to 32 to come to Armenia to volunteer. ABC is non-Armenians 21 plus, as well as diasporans 32 plus. So our volunteers end up being a lot more mature. Our average age is closer to the 40s, whereas their average age is going to be somewhere in the 20s.
Oh, I see a question. It says, any chance you can email volunteering opportunities for high schoolers? I joined a little too late, but my daughter is interested in joining as a volunteer in Armenia at the hospital or in the medical field. So it's a good question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Unfortunately, both Birthright and ABC do have age minimums. So the age minimum is 21, which means a high schooler would be too young to be able to support or to be able to take part in those volunteering. However, give me 1 second to quickly Google. There is REPAD Armenia has a great list of things to do in the summer. And then there's an organization called Traveling Doctors. So I recommend that she reach out to both Traveling Doctors and research this website about summer activities to see if that could be something she would be interested in.
Yeah, that's great. So, as you were talking, Arina, a question popped into my mind. Okay, say I want to volunteer. I'm, planning for next year. I'm thinking, I want to get to Armenia in May or something. So when should they start chatting with you? How long does it take? Or, like what's the mechanic? How would it work? And just step by step.
That's a great question. We typically move very quickly, and there's a danger in that because we move quickly. The expectation is that when people arrive in Armenia, they're going to receive similar sort of cases everywhere else. We have had people come in very, very quickly in as little as applying and then arriving in country within a month. Usually we say, apply at least 1 month prior to your arrival so we can have everything prepared in advance. If there are people who are interested in staying with the host family, then we recommend a little bit more time, especially in the summers, because we have, we do have a limit in terms of how many host families we have. So if we run out of host families, then we could say, we'd love to welcome you, but unfortunately we don't have any available host families.
So it's funny. My next question was this difference between finding housing for yourself, when you get there as a volunteer, or host families. What do you see most people do, and how easy is to find an apartment? I mean, these days, finding an apartment in Yerevan is not easy, right? And now I hear our neighbors from Iran are coming too, fleeing the conflict there. So
my cousin literally just arrived from Tehran yesterday evening. It's definitely not a good situation. I think one of the unfortunate issues that has happened, not just recently with Iran, but even when the Ukraine war, broke out, you had a lot of Russians moving here, the forced exodus of Artsaksis. You had a lot of Armenians from Artsakh coming. That drove rental prices pretty high.
Yeah.
Now prices started coming down slightly. But there are, different alternatives. There's Hur service, there's Airbnb. But if there are volunteers who are interested in staying in a host family, right now I have a 58-year-old volunteer from Brazil who decided to do an early retirement, who is living with a host family. She has said, I have my 2 homes in Brazil, but I really want to immerse in Armenian culture. I want to try it out. And it's difficult because she doesn't get a key. She has to sort of arrange her times of going in and outside of the house, with her host sister. But she loves it. We had a geopolitical conversation today and then had a late lunch afterwards. She was crying, speaking about how this woman was, this master chef who cooked soups just like her mother and was crying just remembering it. So as long as people are coming in through positive, with a flexible mindset, then they're going to have a really good experience. Some people, like I said, will do host families. Some people will find it through Airbnb, through Cure Service. And then Vani, who is one of my favorite people in the world. I have a lot of those, but she's like really, really up there along with Brian. She said that she found really good housing on VRBO, although I don't know what VRBO is.
Yeah, it's like before Airbnb existed, there was VRBO. So would you say from your experience, like 50-50, 50% find a housing on their own and 50 stay with host families? Or?
That's a really good question. Probably 40% of our volunteers stay with host families. 60% prefer to find their own apartments.
Yeah. So please feel free to ask questions. Tsoleen, anything from your end? Any highlights from your experience, or highs or lows, or anything you would have done differently?
I'm glad to be here. I want to be in Armenia. I'm happy to be in Armenia, and ABC laying that groundwork. I know we're talking about the ABC, but truly, like having that foundation and groundwork has made this move transition so much more secure, so much more joyful, impactful, and truly, I feel like I'm contributing to my nation. We talk about tourism and service tourism, and what does that mean to not just come to Armenia on vacation, but come and utilize your skills, your training, your network, and make an impact with that time. And it makes, I mean, with our Aiwa conference, that was the basis of our conference too. How do we bring all these people to Armenia, but create an opportunity to participate in our nation? And ABC is a great model. I mean, the limit is 2 weeks, so it's not a long requirement, but it's doable if you have the flexibility to come. And this talk is called "Come Move Mountains," and truly, like, to participate in our nation. There's no greater feeling, especially when so much seems so out of hand and so worrisome. And we can all wring our hands, or we can participate in our nation.
Well said, Tsoleen. There's a question for you here from Brian. He's saying, are you getting an Armenian passport or citizenship, and do you have a car? I don't know if you need a car in Yerevan, but that's my 2 cents.
I am a citizen. I had applied before I came. I applied because I knew that I was going to be working, and so it would make the like legal paperwork easier if I had the citizenship. Also, I applied during COVID, and so the embassy and the foreign ministry staff, like, they were going through the paperwork in a much streamlined, simpler, and I didn't have to go to Washington. So my case with the citizenship, I also wanted to come and like prove to people that I'm invested in being here. It's not a vacation for me. So the citizenship made that signal. I hadn't at the time realized that it also, had I have sons, my sons would be required to serve.
Yeah.
And so there was this little bit of nuance. I hadn't thought, I'm not married, I don't have children. It didn't impact me, but I've since talked to people and they've said, that's kind of why we haven't become citizens, because of we don't want to the service requirement of our sons. For
about the car,
a car,
you don't have a car, right?
So I bought an apartment, and my apartment is situated pretty close to the center, and so I don't have a car. I don't miss the need for a car. I miss the independence of driving out of the city, but honestly, parking is it's truly a challenge in the city, and although I'm from Massachusetts and I hear, and like our drivers are known to be a certain um certain
Crazy?
type. um Yerevan, it also has a certain type of driver, and so I do miss my independence to leave a city, but I haven't. The costs for me aren't worth it.
I know, and taxis are very reasonable. And what's the other one? Not
And
Uber.
walking,
Walking?
it's a very walkable city.
Yeah, and Gigi tax,
And Gigi,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
easy.
and certainly walking too. It's great to the city. I guess it's been drawn so you're supposed to interact with people on the street. Like it's drawn in such a way that you will come across people. I mean the circular. Of course, you're going to come across people, but I mean like the city is drawn so the intersections create opportunities for meetings. So.
Definitely. Well, Arina, yeah, what would you like to add and maybe concluding thoughts?
I just want to actually add a quick thought to that. I have a car. It is definitely not fun to have a car. I live outside of the city center, so I have, a garage where I can park my car when I get home. But many days it's easier for me to take a taxi and than to drive. And just like Zella was saying, it's cheaper to take a taxi for me than it is to actually fill my car with gas, insure it, and change my tires, which I do pretty regularly because I don't know why they keep getting flat. It's not my driving skills, I swear. And people in Armenia, me included, we are crazy drivers. So it is an extremely dangerous thing to do. You're sort of dealing with potholes, bad drivers, a lot of traffic, angry people. So taxis make it a lot easier.
I think so too. So, Arina, any concluding thoughts? I don't see any other questions here. So, and by the way, this is going to be recorded and it's going to live on our website. And so folks can go and listen to it and share with others.
So I think Tsoleen did a wonderful job of reminding us of today's talk, come move mountains. That is ABC's tagline. And each and every single person, we talk a lot to diasporans. We talk to a lot of non-Armenians who think that XYZ should be changed. So we invite you to think about what you'd like to change. And we invite you to help us help you make that change a reality, because we live in a world where things will only progress in so much as we allow it to, and in so much as we work to do it. So, I hope that you will all consider coming to Armenia at one point and giving your time and service. Thank you.
And thank you, Arina, really. I mean, what you're doing is phenomenal, helping and making such a wonderful experience for everybody who's visiting and staying and working. And thank you, Tsoleen. Thank you, Lida, for this wonderful discussion. Thank you to our attendees and listeners across the globe. Please look out for future Aiwa events and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. So you have to spell out Armenian International Women's Association. And if you're not an AIMA member, we encourage you to join through our website at www.aiwainternational.org, so that you can be part of our active community. Our goal is to engage communities and connect women, like I said earlier. So stay well, stay healthy, and world peace at this point. Thank you. Appreciate it. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.